Nature absorbs a lot of carbon dioxide. Sustainable farming, forestry, and ecosystem restoration can help boost this capacity. Carbon farming groups together a wide variety of agricultural, land management, and forestry practices. These include regenerative farming, ecosystem restoration, afforestation and reforestation, restoring peatlands and wetland, which have vital benefits for the environment, people, and society. Carbon farming is a misnomer because it implies that the climate reaps the main fruits of these practices, which are packaged as carbon removals to be sold on carbon markets. This distorted approach is harmful to the climate and a poisoned chalice for farmers and landowners. Buying carbon credits based on carbon farming practices can be a cheaper alternative to reducing companies' emissions while they pretend to be taking climate action. They do this by supposedly offsetting or neutralizing their emissions with CO2 removed by carbon farming. But these are not real removals. Carbon stored in vegetation and soil does not stay there long enough to consider it a real removal. Fossil fuels were formed over millions of years and lay buried for millions of years until humans decided to burn them. When coal, oil, or gas combust, they release carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. These hang around in the atmosphere, heating up the planet for centuries. Plants, trees, and ecosystems absorb carbon, but this varies over their lifetimes and only lasts as long as they are undamaged. For example, the carbon slowly absorbed by soils through plants can be released back rapidly when the soil is disturbed, for example through tillage. This temporary storage is not long enough to make a difference on the kind of scale needed to tackle the climate crisis. Crediting carbon farming is being promoted as a tool for generating revenue that can finance sustainable practices. But there are many hidden costs that can make this a money-losing proposition for farmers and landowners. Not only is it difficult and expensive to know with any certainty how much carbon is sequestered, farmers and landowners or their descendants could also be responsible and potentially financially liable for any carbon released back because of natural disturbances, such as drought or fire. How do we finance these sustainable practices while avoiding the misuse of carbon removals and greenwashing? It seems like an impossible conundrum, but there is a solution. First, we must shift the focus away from climate and towards the real and big environmental and social benefits from regenerative farming, agroecology, sustainable forestry, and ecosystem restoration. Then we can identify the appropriate sources of public and private funding to finance these practices. Nature is a public good. Thus, public resources should be invested to restore and protect it. The private sector can financially support farmers and foresters to adopt and maintain good practices for the environment and the climate. Tell EU policymakers and legislators that they must prevent carbon farming from becoming yet another greenwashing tool through the carbon removal certification framework, while channeling funding to sustainable farming and forestry practices.